It was a Friday morning like any other. Or at least, that's what I thought when I rolled out of bed. The sun filtered lazily through the curtains, casting that pale gold light Kelsey always loved. She once called it, the kind of light that makes you forgive yourself. That always stuck with me. I padded into the kitchen in my worn-out slippers, rubbing sleep from my eyes. The coffee pot was already half full. I must have started it on autopilot. I leaned against the counter, waiting for the rest to brew, and just let the quiet hang in the air. It was rare, that kind of stillness. The kind where you're alone with your breath and the small noises of your home. The drip of coffee, the creak of wood, the soft hum of life continuing. Kelsey was in the shower, humming some country song I didn't recognize. Her voice was barely audible over the water, but I caught pieces of melody here and there. It was comforting, familiar. We'd been married almost 14 years. In that time, you come to rely on the small rituals. Morning coffee, grocery lists scribbled on the fridge, her foot brushing mine in bed when she shifted in her sleep. I reached for my phone on the counter, and that's when I saw hers. Kelsey's phone buzzed once, then again. It lit up on her nightstand with that sharp, artificial glow that cuts through the soft morning light. At first, I didn't think much of it. I figured it might be one of her coworkers or maybe someone from her nonprofit team. She did a lot of weekend event planning, especially this time of year. But then I saw the name. Logan's smiling face with smiling eyes. Just like that. A name and a smiley emoji. That emoji hit me harder than I ever expected it would. Not a professional title. Not Logan Donor or Logan Event Team. Just Logan. With a little yellow face grinning like it had a secret. The phone was still ringing. A video call. I could see his face in the preview window. Early 30s, maybe younger. Trimmed beard. Soft jawline. One of those wide, charismatic smiles that women either feel safe with or get drawn into. He looked comfortable. Too comfortable. His eyes scanned the screen as he waited for the call to be answered, unaware that I was the one seeing him instead of Kelsey. I didn't touch the phone. Didn't decline the call. I just watched it buzz in my periphery, and time slowed down. It was strange how quickly a normal moment could turn. 1 minute you're waiting on caffeine to kick in, the next you're standing at the edge of something you don't quite understand yet, but can already feel in your chest. When the call finally stopped, I kept staring at the screen, half expecting it to light up again. Didn't. Instead, I heard the bathroom door open. Kelsey stepped into the hallway, wrapped in a white towel, her hair damp and curling slightly at the ends. She looked surprised to see me standing there, but only for a fraction of a second. Then she gave me that easy smile she always used when she thought I was overthinking something. "Oh," she said casually, brushing past me to grab her phone. "That was just Logan. He's the bartender for the gala next month. He's helping us figure out how to set up the bar stations." Just like that. Clean. Neat. No pause. No guilt. Like it was the most boring thing in the world. I watched her unlock the phone, scroll through a few notifications, then put it face down on the dresser like it meant nothing. She went back into the bathroom without waiting for a response. I stood there for a while, feeling like the floor had shifted beneath me. My first instinct wasn't even suspicion. It was denial. You don't want to believe your spouse has something to hide. You want to believe that you're imagining it, that your brain's just filling in blanks with worst-case scenarios. But that name, that emoji, his face, it was burned into my mind. And the way she brushed it off, that's what really got me. Kelsey was a careful woman. Intentional. She didn't forget details. She didn't leave loose ends. That calm explanation felt too ready, too polished, as if she'd rehearsed it. And maybe she had. I didn't say anything. I just nodded, pretending to believe her. Pretending not to notice that she never once asked why I had seen the call, or what I might have thought about it. I made my way back to the kitchen, poured myself a cup of coffee, and stared out the window above the sink. The yard looked the same as always. Jason's old soccer ball still sat under the porch steps. The garden hose coiled neatly where I'd left it. But something felt different. Not out there. In here. Inside me. It's a strange thing. Feeling the world shift while everything around you stays still. I stood in that kitchen for 15 minutes, just staring, thinking, remembering. Kelsey and I weren't always distant. There was a time when we used to make breakfast together every Saturday, laughing while she burned toast and I tried to flip pancakes with too much flair. We used to go to bed at the same time, too. Used to talk about everything. Politics, movies, our dreams. But somewhere along the way, the conversations got shorter. She started spending more time on calls or at events. She'd take work trips at first once every couple months, then once a month, then almost every other weekend. She said she needed space for herself, that the nonprofit was growing. I wanted to believe her. Hell, I did believe her. Until now. That morning, something cracked. I didn't yell. Didn't accuse. But in that silence, something inside me shifted. Like a door I didn't know existed had creaked open just an inch, and behind it, something dark waited. By the time Kelsey was dressed and heading out the door, she was back to her usual self, phone in hand, giving me a quick kiss on the cheek and reminding me about Jason's band rehearsal pickup. I nodded. Said I'd take care of it. Told her to have a good day. And then I watched her walk out the door like she hadn't just dropped a bomb on our marriage. It's funny how betrayal doesn't always arrive with shouting or slammed doors. Sometimes it shows up in the smallest things. A name on a phone. A practiced tone. A smiley face that suddenly means everything. That morning I didn't go to work. I called in and said I needed a personal day. I wasn't even sure why. I just knew I couldn't sit in a conference room talking about audits and tax strategy while my mind kept circling back to a stranger's face on my wife's screen. Instead, I sat in the living room. Then the garage. Then the backyard. I walked in circles. Checked my email. Watched the wind rustle the leaves. And thought. A lot. By noon, I knew something had shifted in me. I didn't have proof. Not yet. But I had something even more dangerous, doubt. And once doubt gets in, it's like mold, it spreads fast and quiet, eating away at everything you thought was solid. I didn't confront her that night. We ate dinner in silence. Kelsey made her usual grilled salmon with a honey glaze. She asked about Jason's school. I answered. She didn't ask about my day. We went to bed in separate rooms. She claimed her back was acting up again. I said nothing. As I lay awake in the guest room, staring at the ceiling, I kept thinking, who is Logan? Who is he really? And why did Kelsey look so calm when his face showed up on her phone? I didn't know then, but that question would soon lead me down a path I couldn't unsee. A path I couldn't walk away from once I started. And deep down, I think I already knew. I'd just taken the first step. I didn't sleep much that weekend. It wasn't that anything huge had happened, not on the surface. Kelsey was still going through her routines like clockwork. Texts, emails, errands, her face always calm. But I had crossed a line in my mind, and once you start noticing the cracks, you can't stop seeing them. That Friday had left a mark. Subtle, maybe invisible to her, but not to me. I started watching. Not in a paranoid, digging through the trash sort of way. Just noticing. It was like tuning in to a station I'd been ignoring for months, maybe years. Saturday morning, she left early, saying she was meeting with a florist downtown to finalize table arrangements for her nonprofit's fundraiser. When I offered to tag along, said it might be fun to see what she was planning, she paused for a half-second too long. Oh, she said, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear, it's just quick, nothing exciting. Just logistics. That pause. That little flicker of hesitation. I wouldn't have thought anything of it before. But now? It stuck. I watched from the living room window as she backed out of the driveway. She didn't know I was watching. She didn't glance back. And that's when the first memory clicked into place. 3 months earlier, she'd gone on a weekend retreat for her nonprofit team. That was the first time she didn't answer my texts for hours. She'd said the signal was bad. But then there were those 2 wine glasses in the background of a photo she'd accidentally posted to her story. When I asked about it, she said it was her coworker, Denise. You've met her, she said. Short, talks fast. Except, I couldn't remember ever meeting anyone named Denise. It seemed so small at the time. I let it go. But now those little moments were coming back with sharp edges. I started thinking back further, combing through my own life like an investigator. Maybe it was the accountant in me trained to find inconsistencies, patterns that don't add up. And Kelsey, she wasn't adding up anymore. She'd started taking more trips this past year. Conferences, workshops, networking dinners. I never questioned them. Why would I? I trusted her. I trusted us. But now, with Logan's face burned into my brain, every one of those professional weekends started to feel like a missing puzzle piece, one that suddenly fit into a picture I didn't want to be looking at. Then there were the nights she stopped sleeping in our bed. At first, she said her back hurt, too much pressure from the mattress. So she started sleeping in the guest room. I offered to swap beds, even buy a new one, but she waved me off. It's just temporary, she said. Don't make a big deal out of it. That was 6 weeks ago. We hadn't slept in the same bed since. Her phone was always face down. Always locked. Always in her pocket or purse. I hadn't thought much of it until I realized how often she checked it with her back to me. And the conversations between us? They'd thinned out like fog in sunlight. Just small talk now. Logistics. Jason's school. Groceries. No more late-night debates about movies or politics, no more inside jokes or quiet glances from across the room. I started noticing other things too. Like how she didn't touch me anymore, not casually, not even in passing. She used to reach for my hand when we walked through the grocery store or lean her head on my shoulder during movies. That warmth had vanished. It was like I'd become a roommate. A placeholder. A reliable backdrop. One moment stood out more than the rest. About a month ago, we were at a restaurant, just the two of us. A rare night out. She'd ordered a Cabernet and took a sip, nodding in approval. She said. Logan was right about this one. I looked up from my menu. Logan? She didn't flinch. Just smiled. Oh, he knows wine. We were talking about it at the last event. At the time, I thought nothing of it. I even joked, should I be jealous? And she laughed, waved it off. Don't be silly. But now in hindsight, that moment burned. She said his name so easily. Comfortably. Like it belonged there. And I, like a fool, smiled back, not realizing I was staring at the clue in plain sight. By Sunday night, I felt like I'd lived a year in the space of 2 days. I didn't say anything to her. Not yet. I wasn't ready. I didn't have proof. But I had the start of something, an intuition that had hardened into certainty even if I couldn't prove it yet. Monday came and I found myself watching her even more closely. The way she scrolled her phone with her face turned toward the window. How she smiled at her screen, then glanced up as if to make sure I hadn't noticed. I kept noticing. Every night, I lay in the guest room and stared at the ceiling. My brain looped through timelines like a spreadsheet. Trip to Denver, 3 days. Training session. No photos, no souvenirs. Came back with a tan. But Denver had been cloudy that weekend, hadn't it? I checked the weather archive. It had rained all 3 days. And then there was that gala last fall. She'd said she stayed late to help clean up. But her dress was barely wrinkled when she got home, her makeup still perfect. She smelled like a different cologne. Not mine. Not the one Jason wore either. Little things. But together, they formed a pattern. A pattern in the distance, just clear enough to make out but still too far to touch. The hardest part wasn't the suspicion. It was the not knowing. The second guessing. Every "I love you" suddenly felt hollow. Every "how was your day" sounded rehearsed. One night, she came home late. Said her car had trouble starting. You know how old the battery is, she said. I offered to take a look, but she said it was fine, she'd called someone. When I asked who, she paused. Just a friend, she said. Which friend? I asked casually. Logan, she said. He was nearby. She didn't blink. Just kept peeling an orange at the counter like it was any other Tuesday night. I don't remember what I said after that. I think I nodded. Maybe I joked. But inside, something turned cold. Logan again. Always Logan. The name had gone from a blip to a shadow. And it was growing. The next day, I skipped work. Took a walk through the park we used to visit when Jason was little. I sat on a bench near the pond and watched ducks glide across the water, their movements effortless. My own thoughts, in contrast, felt like dragging heavy luggage through wet sand. I thought about confronting her. About pulling the pin and letting it all come out. But what if I was wrong? What if I said the words and destroyed something that could be fixed? But then again, what if I was right? By midweek, I knew I had to find out. I couldn't live in limbo. Not when every day felt like I was walking through the ruins of something that used to be whole. So I started small. I found our old tablet, something we used to use for watching movies on trips. It had been collecting dust in a drawer, almost forgotten. I charged it up. And that's when I remembered it was still connected to Kelsey's iCloud. Photos. Notes. Some texts. It wasn't much. But it was something. That's when the dread became resolve. If there was something to find, I was going to find it. And once I knew, I'd never look at her the same way again. The tablet wasn't even password protected. Maybe because we hadn't used it in over a year, or maybe because Kelsey never expected me to turn it back on. Either way, it was still synced to her cloud. And that changed everything. At first, I wasn't sure what I was looking for. I scrolled through the photo albums, mostly old family trips, **TS of recipes, pictures of Jason with his marching band. Normal stuff. Safe stuff. It almost made me think I was being paranoid until I saw the recently deleted folder. It had 31 items, mostly images, some videos, all recently removed. I hesitated before opening it. My thumb hovered over the icon for a full minute while my heart pounded against my ribs like it wanted out. Then I tapped it open. The first image was a mirror selfie of Kelsey in a hotel room. Low lighting. A silk robe I didn't recognize. Her expression was soft in asterisk mate. Not posed like something meant for social media. This wasn't for the public. It was for someone. I flipped to the next image. Kelsey again, now seated on a hotel bed. Same robe, pulled slightly open. Her smile wasn't casual, it was private, inviting. The kind of look you save for someone who knows your body like a roadmap. My stomach turned, but I couldn't stop. I had to know. The third image stopped me cold. Kelsey and a man, Logan. There was no mistaking him now. The beard, the confident smirk. They were sitting on the edge of the bed, glasses of red wine in their hands. She was leaning into him. His arm wrapped around her back like it belonged there. I stared at it for what felt like an hour. Then I moved on. There were more. Photos of them laughing. Photos of them kissing. One where she had her legs draped over his lap. Another, taken from above, of them lying in bed, her head on his chest, eyes closed, smiling. It was the kind of closeness you can't fake. That ease. That comfort. It didn't look like a fling. It looked like a relationship. There were also 3 short videos. I tapped the first one. It played with muted audio, probably due to a default setting, but I didn't need sound. She was sitting on his lap, facing him, giggling like a schoolgirl. She leaned forward and whispered something in his ear. He laughed and pulled her closer. Her lips moved again, slow, deliberate. I turned the sound on. She was whispering his name, drawing it out like a promise. Logan. I missed you. I stopped the video right there. Couldn't take more. I dropped the tablet on the bed and just sat there, numb. It was like someone had pulled the air out of the room. For a second, I thought I might throw up. Instead, I pressed my palms into my eyes until the pressure made lights dance behind my lids. There it was. The truth I'd been circling for weeks. No more suspicion. No more subtle doubts. Just cold, undeniable evidence. Kelsey was having an affair. And not a moment of guilt showed on her face in those images. She looked free. Alive in a way I hadn't seen in a long time. Maybe she'd been gone longer than I realized. Maybe I was the last one to get the memo. I stood up, paced the room, then sat down again. My mind was a cyclone, hurt, fury, heartbreak, disbelief. How long had she been lying to me? Had every smile been fake? Every love you before bed just another line in her cover story? I opened the calendar app, traced the trips. The dates matched. Denver. Nonprofit retreat. Same weekend as the photo of her and Logan drinking wine on the hotel balcony. Austin. Donor conference. Same day as the bed photo, hotel room clearly not the one she claimed to be in. San Diego. Women in Leadership seminar. Same week as a video with Logan in swim trunks, Kelsey behind the camera saying, "Turn around, babe, look at you." I sat back, my hands limp in my lap. It had been going on for a long time. Maybe longer than I wanted to admit. And she'd been careful. Just not careful enough. I thought about Jason. About how he looked up to her, how he still called her mom, even though she was technically his stepmother. She'd raised him since he was 5. He was 17 now. Old enough to understand betrayal when he saw it. But I wasn't ready to tell him. Not yet. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay on the couch and stared at the ceiling until the sky turned pale blue. My thoughts bounced between pain and planning. I wasn't the type to explode. I didn't want to scream or break things. I didn't even want revenge. I wanted distance. Clarity. Control. When Kelsey came downstairs that morning, she was in her usual rush yoga pants, ponytail, coffee-to-go cup in hand. "Morning," she said, not looking up from her phone. I watched her closely. Like she was a stranger I just met. "You have anything big going on today?" I asked, keeping my voice even. "Just meetings. Fundraiser stuff. I'll be home late. Don't wait up." I nodded. "Cool." She kissed the air near my cheek and was gone. I watched the front door close and thought, you have no idea I know. And I wasn't going to let her know. Not yet. Instead, I spent the rest of the day building my escape. First, I made a private appointment with an attorney. Not to file yet. Just to understand my options. I needed to know what the road ahead looked like, legally and financially. Second, I opened a new checking account under my name only. Quietly. Online. Then I began the slow, steady process of separating funds. Nothing obvious. Just shifting things gradually so it wouldn't trip alarms. Next, I pulled Jason's college savings from our shared account and placed it in a custodial trust that only I controlled. Kelsey didn't contribute to that fund, hadn't in years. I wasn't about to let her get her hands on it in a divorce. I canceled my automatic payments into our joint vacation fund, cut off her access to my credit card, and started forwarding bank statements to my private email. Piece by piece, I was detaching. Cleanly. Quietly. I also booked a flight. Austin. A week out. She thought I had a business trip there in 3 weeks. I moved it up. Said the client needed me sooner. That part was true, actually. But it wasn't just a work trip now. It was a reset. A chance to build a firewall between us while I figured out the next move. By the time Kelsey got home that night, late again, I had dinner ready like nothing was wrong. She smiled, thanked me, and talked about her day in broad strokes. I nodded, played my role. She didn't notice how quiet I was. She didn't ask about my day. And I didn't tell her I knew. I just watched her. Studied the curve of her mouth when she talked, the way she sipped wine without ever meeting my eyes. I used to love her voice. Now it sounded like a song I no longer understood. After she went to bed, I picked up the tablet again. Just once more. I watched one final video. It was short, 10 seconds. She was in bed, under covers. The camera was shaky like she was holding it herself. She whispered into the mic, "Wish you were here. Last night was perfect. Don't make me wait too long next time." Then she giggled. Kissed the screen. That was it. I locked the tablet. Put it in the drawer. Sat in the dark and let the silence stretch. I wasn't heartbroken anymore. I was done. They say betrayal changes you. I think that's only half true. What it really does is wake you up. And once you're awake, you start moving differently, colder, smarter, slower. You stop hoping and you start calculating. I didn't confront Kelsey. Not right away. She didn't deserve the drama. She wasn't going to get the satisfaction of watching me crack, shout, beg, or break things. What she was going to get was clarity, served cold, signed in ink, and backed by evidence. The morning after I saw the last video, the one where she whispered she missed him, I met with my lawyer again. His name was Ellis, mid-50s, sharp suit, sharper mind. He didn't flinch when I told him what I'd found. "She's been having an affair with a man named Logan," I said, sliding the tablet across the desk. "I have photos, videos, dates, all time-stamped. I don't want to fight. I want an exit plan." Ellis skimmed through the files in silence, nodding slowly. When he looked up, his voice was cool and steady. "We can work with this. But if you want the upper hand, we need to get ahead of her legally before she realizes what's coming." "Exactly what I was thinking," I said. "I don't want to file yet. Not until I'm somewhere else. Somewhere stable." He tapped a pen against his notepad. "You mentioned Austin?" I nodded. "I've got a client there, well, a group of them. They've been after me for months to consult full-time." "I think it's time," I said. "Yes." "Clean break," he said. "I like it." So we laid it out step by step. First came the separation agreement, 30 days, legally binding. Not a divorce, not yet. But it would draw the line. No more shared expenses. No more obligations. No more illusions. Just two people, legally frozen, each free to do what they wanted, at least on paper. Ellis drafted it that day. It was a masterpiece of calm language and precise boundaries. It removed me from joint liabilities. Protected Jason's college fund through a new trust structure. Locked Kelsey out of anything tied to my business holdings. Everything we once shared, now carefully unbraided. I brought the documents home in a manila folder. Kelsey wasn't there, she was at a board meeting. I didn't need to ask with who. I left the folder on the kitchen table. When she came in around 9 p.m., she looked tired but content. She kissed me on the cheek and poured herself a glass of wine. Then she saw the folder. "What's this?" she asked, setting her glass down. "Something I've been thinking about," I said. "Don't worry. It's not a divorce. Just a 30-day separation. Legal cooling-off period. I think we need it." Her eyebrows lifted. "This is sudden." I shrugged. "I need time. You need space. This gives us both." She flipped through the pages, her expression unreadable. "It says you're removing financial support." "Temporarily," I said. "I'll still cover the mortgage. But the cards, the accounts, that's paused for now. This gives us room. I think it's fair." She didn't argue. Didn't ask what triggered it. Didn't even ask if I was seeing someone else. She just nodded slowly and said, "Okay. Maybe that's not a bad idea." She signed it that night. And just like that, the trap closed. The next morning, I was on a plane to Austin. She thought I was giving her breathing room. She didn't realize I was already gone. The moment I landed, I hit the ground running. I'd already lined up a service department downtown, near the lake. Small, modern, clean. Enough space to work and sleep and nothing more. I unpacked with military precision, set up a temporary home office, and got to work. Austin was a different world. New energy. New skyline. The kind of place where no one knew me as Kelsey's husband. I wasn't someone's partner. I was just Tom Miller, consultant, analyst, private contractor. I didn't tell anyone back home where I was staying. Not even Jason. Meanwhile, back in Nashville, my lawyer filed the paperwork that gave me full control of the house. Quietly. Efficiently. He also sent an updated deed for me to sign, placing the home solely in my name, one of the perks of how we'd structured the original mortgage. While that was happening, I met with a team of financial advisors, people I trusted, people who knew how to move money without leaving a mess. Within a week, I'd closed our joint account and opened 2 new ones, one personal, one for Jason's trust. I routed every automatic deposit and bill to the new structure. By the time Kelsey checked the balance of our vacation fund, it showed $0. I also listed her car for sale. It was technically registered under my LLC, something she'd forgotten. Ellis arranged for it to be repossessed and moved to a holding lot. It sold within 4 days. She didn't even get a warning. Jason's private school tuition was paid out of the new trust account. I removed her access from the parent portal and changed the emergency contacts. The school didn't bat an eye, just updated the records. Then came the insurance. Medical, dental, auto, homeowners. I restructured everything. She was no longer a beneficiary. No longer covered. I forwarded her the documents with a polite 2-sentence email. As per the terms of our signed agreement, your coverage under my policies has been discontinued. Please secure your own provider within 15 days. I got no reply. Not even a read receipt. At first, that bothered me. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized it didn't matter. I wasn't doing this to hurt her. I wasn't even doing it to make a point. I was doing it to reclaim my life. Kelsey didn't call. Didn't text. I think she assumed I was grieving in silence. She'd always known me as steady, predictable, loyal. The kind of man who needed time to process. What she didn't realize was that I wasn't grieving anymore. I was adapting. The final piece fell into place a week later. My firm back in Nashville had approved my remote consulting status. No more home office. No more audits. No more waiting on permission. I was free. Completely. And she had no idea. I stood at the window of my Austin apartment that night, watching the lights of the city blink against the sky. I sipped a drink, stared at my own reflection, and thought, this is what clarity looks like. I wasn't angry anymore. Not really. The anger had served its purpose. It had lit the fire. But now I was running on something deeper. Something quieter. Resolve. This wasn't revenge. It was strategy. And the board was set. She just didn't know yet that I'd already made my move. I knew the day they would come back. Kelsey had mentioned it offhand in one of her few texts, something about needing to pick up a few things for Jason's college planning. She said they'd be back Sunday night. Just like that. As if things were still hers to manage. As if nothing had changed. She didn't ask if I'd be home. She didn't realize that, technically, it wasn't her home anymore. Sunday arrived quietly in Austin. I didn't hear from her. I didn't expect to. But I could picture it in my mind, hour by hour, the scene unfolding in a house that no longer held her name. They'd pull into the driveway just after sunset. The porch light would flick on automatically. Jason would be carrying a backpack, maybe his guitar. She'd be unlocking the door before noticing it didn't feel right. That moment, that second of hesitation when the key didn't turn. I knew it would hit her like a static shock. What she wouldn't expect was what came next. The locks were changed. The security system had been updated, new provider, new access codes. And waiting at the front step wasn't me. It was a courier. Professionally dressed, holding a plain white envelope. No shouting. No confrontation. Just protocol. The envelope contained everything: the formal notice of property reassignment, the signed separation agreement, copies of the evidence, photos, videos, email timestamps. Each file organized, labeled, and sealed with a certification stamp from Ellis' office. There was also a letter from me. Short. 3 paragraphs. Kelsey, this is not an act of cruelty. It's an act of clarity. The documents speak for themselves. I have relocated. This house is no longer your residence. Please do not attempt to enter again. If you need additional belongings, coordinate with my attorney. I wish you peace. Tom. Inside, the house was empty in all the ways that mattered. I'd left the furniture but stripped it of comfort. No personal photos, no clothes, no keepsakes. The closets were cleared, drawers emptied. Even the kitchen cabinets were reorganized, sterile. The walls that once held wedding photos now held nothing. But what hit the hardest, I imagined, was the silence. No footsteps echoing in the hallway. No warm lights or familiar scents. Just a shell of a life that used to be hers. Jason wouldn't understand at first. And truthfully, I didn't blame him. He wasn't the target of this collapse. But he was a bystander pulled into a storm his mother had created. I had hoped he'd be spared from the fallout, but life rarely works that way. Their joint bank card was declined at the gas station. The hotel she tried to check into refused her card. It had been closed 2 days earlier. She called her backup line of credit, only to hear the automated message, "This account has been temporarily suspended due to changes in authorization." She didn't cry. At least, I doubt she did. Kelsey wasn't the kind of woman who cried in front of others. But inside, she had to know this was the price. This was the invoice. She called Ellis' office the next day. "I know because he called me after." She was calm, he said. More confused than angry. She asked if there was any chance for mediation. I told him no. "She's not used to being caught," I said. "Let her sit with that." He agreed. By Tuesday, she'd found a place to land, a short-term rental from one of her acquaintances. Nothing fancy. 1 bedroom. Paper-thin walls. Close enough to the city for work, far enough from me for comfort. Jason stayed with her, but I could tell from Ellis' tone that he wasn't taking it well. According to the documents, he'd already withdrawn from his college apps. Taking a break, Kelsey told the school registrar. The funds in his trust were locked. Not gone. Just out of reach until I determined he was ready. He wasn't biologically mine, and the court wouldn't see me as obligated. But I still cared. Still wanted better for him. He just wasn't going to get it through her. I kept tabs on things, not obsessively, but methodically. Like a man following through on a calculation. Their mail was redirected. Her business contacts started pinging in auto-reply. Jason's music teacher called me, asked if he was still coming to lessons. "I don't think so," I said quietly. By Thursday, the house was listed. I'd hired a staging company in advance, swapped out every trace of our old life. They made it look modern, minimal, fresh. The photos online didn't show the history. Just space and light and angles. It went live that morning. Price to move. By the time Kelsey saw the listing, the offer had already come in. Full price. All cash. She texted me at 2:13 p.m. Her first message since signing the separation agreement. "Is this really happening?" I didn't answer. 10 minutes later, she tried again. "I didn't think you'd actually do this. Can we please talk?" Still, I said nothing. Then came the third. "Please don't shut me out like this." I looked at the screen. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. For a moment, I felt something flicker, a memory, maybe. Her smile from 5 years ago. Her laugh in the old garden when she dropped a whole bowl of peaches. But then I remembered the whisper. The video. Her in another man's arms, saying she missed him. I closed the message. Archived the thread. I had nothing left to say. That weekend, Ellis finalized the motion for divorce. All conditions pre-negotiated. Infidelity documented. Asset movement certified. There was no loophole for her to crawl through. No hidden card she could play. When the papers arrived at her new address, she signed them. No handwritten note this time. No more smiley faces. The courier said she didn't look surprised. Just tired. By the end of the month, I had 3 offers on the house. The buyer I chose was a newlywed couple, bright, young, full of hope. The kind of people who looked at granite countertops and saw their future. I handed them the keys in silence, wished them luck, and walked away. Back in Austin, the world was quieter. And in that quiet, I felt something I hadn't in months. Peace. Not joy. Not triumph. Just peace. I started going on evening walks by the lake. I bought new coffee mugs. No more best husband ever. Just clean, white ceramic. I filled the apartment with things that made sense to me, not to us. I didn't tell anyone what happened. Didn't vent. Didn't gloat. I didn't need to, because the truth was simple. She came back to an empty house and found out that the man who used to live there, he was already gone. The courtroom wasn't dramatic, just fluorescent lights and tired faces. Kelsey tried to appear composed, but her voice trembled when the judge asked about the timeline. Ellis presented the evidence, dates, images, receipts, each one a nail in the coffin. Her story unraveled. The affair had started before the separation. That was all the court needed. Jason's adoption had never been formalized. Legally, I wasn't responsible. Financially, I owed nothing. Kelsey's claim for spousal support was denied. Her infidelity nullified her arguments. The judge signed off without hesitation. Just like that, the marriage was over. I stayed in Lisbon, far from the wreckage. The tech firm kept me busy. The sea, the stillness, it gave me room to breathe. Kelsey moved in with Logan, but the fantasy collapsed fast. He lost his job, started drinking. The charm wore off. She cleaned motel rooms now. Jason dropped out, delivering groceries on foot. She wrote me a letter once, asking for help. I didn't respond. My lawyer did. She used to whisper to a bartender that she wasn't at fault. But she knew. She just didn't expect to lose everything for it. And I didn't expect to survive it. But I did.